Good afternoon, everyone. Christian here. Today I have a dream to share with you. I think off the top of my head, this is the worst dream I have ever seen. I'm going to tell you what I dreamt, wrote it down after I had it, and then I will tell you what I understand about it. If there's any insight that you have about the dream, feel free to comment below. I'd like to hear your understanding as well. Okay, again, I dreamt this last night on August the 22nd, 2022. I dreamed I was struggling with an enemy. I also perceived that I was only remembering the end of the dream. This dream had gone on longer than I'm telling you, but the only part that I recall coming out of the dream was what I'm telling you now, the very end of it. So I dreamed I was struggling with an enemy. I perceived it was the devil himself. As I struggled with the enemy, I fell from my perch up on a stone platform or a path or a bridge. I'm not certain. I didn't really get a good look at it. It was just a stone structure of some kind. And I fell off of it, but not far. It was like just a couple of feet down, it's like a small drop, And what I fell onto was like a dark soil that was maybe damp. It didn't feel damp, but it was a dark soil, like a rich soil. As I fell from the higher position to the lower position, I was aware of the seeds in my hand. And this is going to take a moment here to explain this. So my wife has one of these. It's a rubber kind of, you fill it with water and you can freeze it, and I guess it's supposed to be easier to get ice cubes out of. I don't know. But it was something like this, very similar to this is what I saw in my dream. Only it was black, and I think it was deeper. And I didn't even see it in the struggle. It wasn't until I landed on the soil down below that it fell like this, upside down on the soil, right? On top of the soil, like this. And then this was no longer there. All I saw was what was inside of this. So let me explain this. What I saw initially was the container went down, and I knew, and I could see it as soon as I looked at it. This rubberized thing was no longer here, and what I saw instead was little pots of like potting soil. And I knew that inside of each one of these little pots, like this, there was like a seed, right? Planted in each one of them. And when I did this, then I could see that the soil was now sitting on top of the earth, right? Where I had planted it inadvertently, because it was just part of the struggle, and then boom, it falls. And I knew in the dream that the enemy and I were no longer struggling. It was over. The fight was over. I had lost, and he was pleased with the outcome, because multiple seeds within the container were his. Some of them were mine, like a couple of them, at least one, I think it was two, were mine, but the rest were his. And as I saw this, my hand was over them, and I considered for a moment like squishing them, and that I didn't want to touch his seeds for fear of what it might do to my hand. So I didn't mess with it, except for to think to myself, I hope the Lord blesses, mine do well and his do not do well, his do poorly. And then I woke up. When I woke up and I first thought about the dream, I thought, wow, what a horrible dream, And I was thinking about it, I'm like, at least I had some of my seed planted. And then I thought, no, that's horrible. I would rather have no fruit from any seeds planted than to have any fruit produced for the devil. That's just a horrible thing, Anyway, so I lay there for a minute thinking about it, and it just really bothered me. And so I got up and I came in here and I sat down and started praying about it. And the verse that came to my mind was Matthew 13, chapter 13, verses 24 through 30. I don't have it in front of me, but let me get it. Where's my Bible? Way over there. I guess I could have looked it up on the computer, huh? All right. Matthew 13. Get my old man glasses on. Let's see. New Bible. Matthew 13. What does that say? 24 through something or other? To 30? Was that right? Yeah. It says, chapter 13, verse 24, it says, "Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which soweth good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares amongst the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in the field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn." So that's what the Lord brought my attention to. Was he reminded me of that verse, and so I looked it up and I read it, and I was like, okay, so this is an interesting thing here. It's not like at first I look at the thing and thinking, have I done something in my life that has allowed the enemy to use me, right, to sow his seed into the world, And I sought the Lord on it, and he told me no, and so I couldn't think of anything, and so I was thinking, like, being very, very cautious and wondering, this is definitely not something you'd ever want to do, right? But the Lord was showing me this dream, and so I kept seeking him, and finally the Lord was revealing to me that it's a warning dream for those of us that are about to be empowered. We're about to have the power in our hand to move things, to plant things, to sow, right? To take ground, to, however you want to word that. The Lord has given us a warning and telling us to be careful. You'll notice in the dream that each of them were held together in one container. So all the seeds were in one hand, right? And they could be all planted in any single place that I put them, but they would all be brought together. So the Lord has given us a warning about what we do in the land that he's sending us to be very cautious, not to be used by the enemy to plant what he wants planted there. And let me give you an example of something, case like that. When the Israelites went into the promised land, they had never been this way before, and they were tricked by the enemy. And the enemy came along and said, hey, we're from far off, let us make a covenant with each other, and we'll live next to you, and so forth and so on. We won't harm you, and you won't harm us. And so they made this deal, because on the surface of things, it looked like they were from far away, and just as they were saying, but come to find out, they were actually the people that they were supposed to be casting out of the land, and they made a covenant with them, and therefore had to allow them to stay. And this, of course, became thorns, right, to them. It became a snare to them in the future, because what they had done by literally planting the enemy firmly and securely in the land that God had just sent them into, and gave them, and was going to remove these people from there. But anyway, that's what the Lord's warning dream is about. It's not just about that, the covenants that you make with other people and things like that. I think it's too broad for me to give you all different ways this could happen. So what is important is that you always seek the Lord before you make any moves, right? Make sure that what you do is detailed by God, so that he says, do it this way and only this way and for this long. And, every little detail, let him guide you on how to do it. Because if you do it in your flesh, you will be tricked, you will be fooled, and you will end up sowing the land with mixture, and it's not going to be a good thing. So it's really, really important. That's a horrible feeling to wake up thinking that you have just helped the enemy sow tares in the land. That's terrible. You don't ever want to do that. So it's important about that. Now, it's also, I guess for a moment, I could take a second here and say that, it's possible that we had done this in the past, and I spoke about this in the past as well, where maybe you married the wrong person, or maybe you made an agreement with somebody at some point in time, and now they've hitched their wagon to your train, in a sense, you know. Whatever it would be, sometimes we do that, and we have in the past done things that we've been bound to, right? And it keeps us in a situation where we're now kind of, what is it? The scripture says, don't be unequally yoked. But to say don't be unequally yoked means that you could be unequally yoked. And so some of you might yet be unequally yoked. And it's important to understand that you don't have the ability to just take it with your own hand and destroy things that have been done, because you could hurt yourself that way as well. You know, so you got to really seek the Lord in everything that you do, even how you respond to the enemy. And so in this case here, if it's already laid out that way, then leave it and let the Lord deal with it how he will. He will cause the one to perform well and the other not to perform well, or whatever happens, you know. It's just a dream that's a warning to everybody who's about to be empowered to take things and to go in and occupy. The Lord is saying, you know, you've not been this way before. You're going to need his guidance, and if you do it on your own, you're going to end up like I was in that dream. And that's not something you want to ever be in, okay? I appreciate your prayers, and any insight you have about this dream, feel free to comment below. God bless, take care, and I will see you in the next one.